He used me for his reputation. Then I showed up on the red carpet. Pregnant. Part 4. Chapter 21. The birth goes viral. Mira Lane woke up to contractions. Not soft, not gradual, but sharp, low, and rhythmic, like her body was saying, "It's time." The sun was just rising over Paris. Pink light spilled through the open windows of her penthouse loft, touching the floorboards like a benediction. The night before had been hellfire. Jackson's live confession had scorched the internet, incinerated what was left of his career, and etched Mira's name into a new kind of fame, not tabloid, not PR, but cultural mythology. And now, her body, the very thing they tried to erase, control, discredit, was calling the final shot. She was going into labor. Celeste was already pacing the kitchen when Mira emerged in a robe, one hand on her lower back. "Murd," Celeste said, turning in shock. "Already?" Mira exhaled slowly. "My water broke 15 minutes ago." A pause. "Then, should I call the car?" "No," Mira said. "Call the crew." Celeste blinked. "You're filming this?" Mira nodded. "Calm. Certain. This is the end of the story. And the start of the real one." The plan had been in place for weeks. Mira knew she didn't want to disappear into a hospital and emerge quietly, 2 days later, with a blurred-out baby and a caption reading "Welcome to the world." That's what they expected. Softness. Simplicity. Clean bows on complicated truths. But this child, her daughter, was born of fire and silence and survival. Her birth was not a footnote. It was a finale. Within an hour, Mira's team transformed the penthouse into a birth suite with the precision of a production set. A team of midwives arrived, all women, all trusted. Lighting techs set up soft filters and ambient glows. Cameras were positioned discreetly, no invasive angles, no trauma, only reverence. The documentary was already 90% finished. Her legal war, the contract, the betrayal, the erasure, the revenge, it was all there. The only thing missing was the ending. Now it was coming. At 10:17 a.m. Paris time, Mira Lane went into full labor. She didn't wear makeup. She didn't wear a hospital gown. She wore a black bralette and a sheer wrap. Her hair was braided down her back. Her body moved like a storm with purpose. No screaming. No dramatics. Just breath. And power. The live stream began at 10:45 a.m. But it wasn't public. Not yet. Instead, it was encrypted. Fed directly into the editing bay where Mira's documentary team began layering in the final sequence, real-time footage over Mira's final monologue. "They told me to be silent. They told me to shrink. To disappear for their comfort. But I built something they couldn't delete." At 1:09 p.m., Mira gave one final push, and brought her daughter into the world. Cameras didn't zoom in. There was no sensationalism. Just one wide shot, Mira holding her baby against her chest, tears streaming down her face, her body trembling, her voice whispering. "You're here. You made it. You stayed." The image was transcendent. By 6 p.m., the footage had been edited, colored, and mastered. The documentary, now titled simply The Contract, Final Cut, ended with the scene of the birth, overlaid with headlines Mira had once been buried beneath. Hysterical. Delusional. Clout chasing nobody. Unstable. Gone. Then one final headline. Mother. Fade to black. At 7 p.m., the documentary premiered across 3 streaming platforms. Viewers could donate directly to maternal health funds through the credits. And in less than 24 hours, the stats were staggering. 20.6 million views. 11 million reposts of the birth clip. She stayed trend for 48 hours. Donations passed $4.3 million by midnight. No studio had funded it. No PR team had engineered it. This was hers. Unfiltered. Undeniable. Unforgivable. Back in LA, Jackson Vane watched the last 5 minutes of the film alone. No entourage. No premiere. No rewrites. Just him, Mira's voice echoing from the screen. Her whisper. Her pain. Her rage. Her child. His face crumpled, but there were no cameras left to catch the fallout. Because this wasn't his story anymore. It belonged to the girl he tried to delete. Who live-streamed her rebirth instead. Chapter 22 Baby's Name. The day after the documentary aired, Mira Lane awoke in her Paris loft cradling something much quieter than revenge. Her daughter. Tiny. Warm. Real. She was wrapped in a knitted blanket handmade by one of the Noy seamstresses, who had stayed up 3 nights before the due date stitching a pattern of vines and tiny lightning bolts, a nod to Mira's story, and the storm she'd survived to bring this child into the world. The flat was calm. Morning light filtered in through gauzy curtains. Outside, Paris buzzed with energy, but inside, everything had slowed. It was the first day since the firestorm that Mira wasn't fighting. Not the internet. Not the press. Not Jackson. She was just holding her daughter. Breathing in her scent. Memorizing the exact way her nose curled, the feather-light weight of her fingers wrapped around one of Mira's. She hadn't named her yet. But the name had been waiting. Like a secret, resting beneath her ribs. Celeste arrived mid-morning with breakfast and the most Celeste-like offering imaginable, warm croissants, a soft smile, and a plush stuffed lion. "You were magnificent," she whispered, laying it gently on the baby's bassinet. "I was exhausted," Mira whispered back. "Still am." Celeste knelt beside her. "Do you have a name?" Mira looked down at the tiny face resting against her chest, eyes closed, skin pink and perfect. "I do," she said. She waited until evening to announce it, quietly, with no media frenzy, no team-crafted caption, no exclusive deals. Just one photo. Posted to Instagram. Mira sitting on the windowsill of the loft, barefoot, hair loose, wearing an oversized white button-down shirt. Her baby lay peacefully against her chest, the sun haloing them both. Her hand cradled the back of her daughter's head. And the caption read: "Welcome to the world, Mira Lane. Mira equals rebirth. Lane equals my name. Not his." The post shattered the internet again. 3.1 million likes in 1 hour. Vogue reposted it with the headline, "A name that holds the whole story." Feminist authors, celebrities, and activists flooded the comments. At Lailoritis Books. "She gave her child a legacy that starts with truth." At Shantajibs, actress. Mira Lane. "You don't even know yet, baby girl, but your mom broke the rules for you." Even the official Noy account commented. "Mira is our new muse." The significance wasn't lost on anyone. Mira. A Sanskrit name. It meant rebirth, renewal, revival. A river, in some cultures. A roar, in others. Lane. Mira's own name. Not inherited. Not borrowed. Not branded by a man who had tried to erase her. It was a declaration that her daughter didn't belong to legacy, or scandal, or Hollywood. She belonged to herself. And to Mira. Across the ocean, Jackson saw the post. He stared at the name. He zoomed in on the baby's face. And for the first time, it sank in, bone deep, that he wasn't part of this story anymore. She hadn't given his name. Not even a middle name. No acknowledgement. No olive branch. Just silence. And a legacy Mira had claimed back with a single, perfect choice. Mira Lane. The name spread across the world like a prayer and a warning. You cannot silence what is born from truth. You cannot co-parent a child you tried to erase. You cannot reclaim what you never protected. Later that night, Mira lay with Mira asleep on her chest, both of them lit only by the soft blue glow of the moon. She whispered it again, just to feel it in her mouth. Mira. And smiled. Because the story had a name now. And it was only hers. Chapter 23 Jackson's Meltdown. There were moments when Jackson Vane had felt invincible. On red carpets, cloaked in Tom Ford and flashbulbs. On late-night talk shows, laughing with perfectly timed self-deprecation. In bed with Mira, whispering "You make me forget the cameras are even there." But those days were gone. Now, Jackson Vane was pacing alone in a Bel Air mansion he no longer wanted to live in, phone in hand, career in flames, voice messages from his agent piling up like unwanted guests. He hadn't slept in 3 days. He couldn't look at himself in the mirror without hearing it. I told her to get rid of it. The moment that had been broadcast live, echoed through the world, and carved its way into cultural history as 7 words that detonated his entire persona. He had lost everything. His role in Vault, legacy. Pulled. The studio released a vague statement about reframing the franchise with integrity. Rumors swirled that they were reshooting his scenes with a lesser-known actor, one with a clean slate and no audio crimes. Sponsorships. Gone. Brands dropped him like radioactive glass. Some replaced him with Mira. One even issued a cheeky campaign with the tagline, "We don't ghost loyalty." His agent. On hiatus. Which, in Hollywood, meant scrubbing your number from their phone forever. Ivy Saint. Missing. She hadn't returned his calls. Her publicist announced she would be focusing on personal growth and taking space from toxic narratives. In other words, she left. So Jackson did what celebrities do when backed into a corner. He filmed a YouTube apology. It was everything it shouldn't have been. The camera shook slightly. He hadn't hired a crew. He sat on a leather couch, hoodie wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. "Hey," he began, voice cracking. "I don't have a team with me. I just wanted to speak from the heart. No script. Just honesty." He wiped his nose, then let out a shaky breath. "There's been a lot said about me. A lot of it true. Some of it taken out of context. But what I said, what you heard me say." He paused. Looked away. Swallowed hard. "I can't take that back." Cue sob. He rubbed his hands over his face. Let the tears fall. Real or performed, the internet didn't care anymore. "I never meant to hurt her. I loved her. I was scared. I panicked. I didn't know how to be what she needed. And I'm sorry. To Mira. To Riva. To every woman who saw herself in this story and was hurt by my choices. He looked into the camera like he wanted redemption to arrive in the comments. I'm asking for forgiveness. From the bottom of my heart. The video uploaded. He waited. And the world ate him alive. Within 12 minutes, it was flooded with over 100,000 comments, most of them furious, sarcastic, or flat-out mocking. You didn't cry this hard when you ghosted her. Bro weaponized tears after weaponizing shame. Jackson Vane, starring in, Sorry I Got Caught. Turn off the camera and go raise your kid, oh wait. The dislike count overtook likes in under 10 minutes. YouTube disabled comments within the hour. TikTok flooded with duets mocking every dramatic pause and crocodile tear. A therapist stitched the video with a breakdown of manipulative sobbing patterns. A popular YouTuber posted a parody titled, How Not to Apologize When You Destroy a Woman's Life and Get Caught on Mic. Even the algorithm turned on him. Mira didn't respond publicly. She didn't post. Didn't reference it. Didn't acknowledge it even existed. Because the apology wasn't for her. It was for him. For the version of himself he was still clinging to. The man who thought a tear-soaked YouTube upload could unwrite betrayal. In Paris, Mira fed Riva while listening to a calm jazz playlist. The window was open. The city hummed outside. Celeste entered, holding her phone. He posted it. Mira raised an eyebrow. Is it going to change anything? Celeste smirked. Only that he's now officially a meme. And that was it. Jackson Vane, once beloved, once golden, had become a warning. Not just to studios, or to women. But to anyone who believed the truth could be controlled once a woman started documenting it herself. He had sobbed for the internet. But the world had already cried with her. Chapter 24 The Oscars Sabotage. The Academy hadn't planned for her. When the official nominations were announced, no one, least of all the old guard in tuxedos and legacy brands, expected a documentary made by a betrayed, blacklisted stylist turned cultural hurricane to land 4 Oscar nominations. But the contract did more than just go viral. It disrupted. Best Original Documentary. Best Editing. Best Original Score. And the final, most symbolic, Best Documentary Short Subject, Mira Lane, Director. The woman they once reduced to Jackson Vane's ex was now the first single mother, 8 months postpartum, to ever be nominated for writing, producing, and starring in her own story on Hollywood's biggest stage. And still, the Academy tried to play nice. To do damage control with old PR tricks. So they invited Jackson Vane to present Best Documentary. Not to win it. Not to attend humbly. To present. A final attempt at industry grace. A wink to forgiveness. As if a tear-stained YouTube apology and 6 months of silence earned him a return to the podium. Mira knew the moment she saw the leaked schedule. Jackson. On stage. Presenting her category. It wasn't just tone deaf, it was a deliberate test. The industry wanted a moment. Something they could edit into a behind-the-scenes reel about healing and how stories bring people together. They wanted her to be civil. To nod politely from her seat while he fumbled through scripted lines and handed a golden statue to the woman he once told, "Get rid of it." And she almost let it happen. Almost. 2 days before the ceremony, the Academy got a call. Not from a lawyer. Not from a publicist. From Mira. She didn't demand anything. She simply made an offer. Let me present the award. I'll wear Noi. I'll keep it elegant. You want a moment? I'll give you one they'll never forget. The switch was made quietly. Behind closed doors. Even Jackson wasn't told. He arrived at the Dolby Theatre in a tux that looked too expensive for a man this irrelevant, preparing for his brief redemption arc, ready to perform the part of the gracious, regretful host. Backstage, he rehearsed his lines one last time. Out front, the audience buzzed. And somewhere just behind the curtains, Mira stood waiting. Dressed in structured midnight silk, baby weight and brilliance radiating beneath stage lights, her hair pulled into a braid crowned with a gold wire halo. On her wrist, a single bracelet that read, Riva. She didn't look nervous. She looked like a woman about to steal back everything they tried to hand to someone else. And then, cue the intro. The voiceover announced. To present the Academy Award for Best Documentary Short, please welcome. Jackson stepped forward. Only, the screen didn't cut to him. It cut to Mira. Spotlight. Applause. Gasp. And then. A standing ovation. Not polite. Not obligatory. A visceral, unanimous, chest-thumping roar. Cameras panned across the room. Actresses with tears in their eyes. Men clapping with guilty shoulders. Directors standing on chairs. A-list stars whispering it's her. And Jackson. He froze in the wings, mouth open. Because in that moment, it was his name that had been replaced. Mira took the stage with a slow, deliberate smile. Her posture was regal, grounded, luminous. She waited for the applause to die. It didn't. Eventually, she spoke. This year, the documentaries reminded us that truth isn't always convenient. Sometimes, it's messy. Sometimes, it's painful. But always, always, it's necessary. She paused. And sometimes, telling the truth doesn't just change the world. It brings a child into it. The audience erupted again. She opened the envelope. Held it delicately. And the Oscar goes to. Pause. Smile. Not me. But someone just as powerful. And she handed the gold statue to a tearful young director from Ukraine, shaking with joy. Because Mira hadn't come to win. She had come to rewrite the moment they once scripted for someone else. Backstage, Jackson stood just feet away. Watching her light up the screen he was once promised. Security didn't ask him to leave. They didn't have to. He walked out alone. Not with scandal. Not with fire. But with silence. The same kind he had once forced on her. That night, Mira didn't throw a party. She went home. Put Riva to bed. Sat on the couch in her Oscar gown with popcorn in her lap and stretch marks proud on her thighs. And she smiled. Because they finally understood. This wasn't a comeback. It was a coronation. Chapter 25 Grand Finale. Paris. Fashion Week. Spring /summer. The stage was set on the Pont Alexandre 3, a floating runway stretched across the Seine, backlit by golden hour and lined with candles that flickered against the breeze like tiny hearts refusing to be extinguished. Noi was closing the week, and they didn't just want to make a statement, they wanted to end a dynasty. No theme was announced. No designer teased the finale. No leaks. No press passes past a certain row. All anyone knew was that Mira Lane was returning. For the first time since the scandal, the heartbreak, the headlines, the birth, the global uprising, Mira would walk the runway again. And this time, she wasn't walking for someone else. Not for a boyfriend. Not for a brand. Not for a man with a contract and a crisis manager. She was walking for every woman who'd ever been discarded, disbelieved, and then told to come back quietly, smaller, safer, more manageable. Tonight, she would not shrink. She would reign. Backstage, Mira stood barefoot on cool marble, breathing in the scent of jasmine and rain. Celeste tightened the shoulder straps of her custom gown, a sheer, architectural sculpture of hand-woven lace and armor, half couture, half cathedral. Etched into the bodice, in thread so fine it could barely be seen unless you looked closely. She stayed. "I can carry her," Celeste whispered, holding her arms out. But Mira shook her head. "No," she said. "I carry her." She bent down and scooped her daughter into her arms. Mira Lane. Now 8 months old, wide-eyed, chubby-cheeked, wearing a soft black satin onesie with tiny silver wings stitched into the back. She looked up at her mother and cooed, utterly unaware she was about to appear in the most talked-about finale in fashion history. Mira kissed her forehead, then stepped forward. The music began. Not a dramatic score. Not a remix. Just the soft thrum of a woman's heartbeat, then another layered on top. A child's heartbeat. Mira emerged from behind the curtain. And the world stopped. Cameras fell silent. People stood, not out of etiquette, but out of awe. She walked the full length of the bridge, barefoot, child on her hip, her posture unshakable, the wind catching her gown like wings. Every step was poetry. She wasn't trying to be fierce. She wasn't trying at all. She simply existed, undeniable. The crowd didn't cheer. Not at first. They watched. Stunned. Reverent. Because what they were seeing wasn't fashion. It was mythology. The final chapter of a story that was supposed to end in silence, rewritten in front of the very industry that tried to bury her. Mira Lane wasn't modeling a look. She was modeling survival. Defiance. Motherhood. Power. At the end of the runway, she turned and paused. Riva stirred. Mira rocked her gently. Then Mira raised her gaze to the audience, and for one breathless moment, her eyes seemed to find everyone and no one all at once. And then the applause came. Thunderous. Unapologetic. Unending. Not polite clapping. Not press-friendly approval. A roar. From editors. Designers. Models. Assistants. Daughters. Mothers. Strangers. It wasn't just admiration. It was vindication. The headlines came quickly. She didn't just walk. She took the whole damn bridge with her. Fashion Post. Mira Lane ends Paris Fashion Week with the most powerful moment in runway history. Vogue. No one will ever walk alone again because Mira Lane walked first, with a baby. NYT. The fashion industry didn't deserve her. She rebuilt it anyway. L. Later that night, backstage, Mira sat on a velvet couch, bare feet tucked beneath her, gown slightly rumpled, Riva asleep on her chest. A reporter approached, cautiously. Just one question. If you could say one thing to the woman you were a year ago, what would it be? Mira smiled without looking up. They didn't break you. They uncovered you. Because in the end, this story wasn't just about scandal, or betrayal, or even survival. It was about sovereignty. Mira Lane didn't just reclaim her narrative. She rewrote the genre. Epilogue: The Girl in the Mirror. The girl in the mirror looked different now. Not older, though yes, there were fine lines at the corners of her eyes and a softness to her cheeks that hadn't been there before. Not more glamorous, though her reflection still carried that effortless magnetism, the kind the world tried to steal and sell back to her. No. She looked anchored. She looked free. The Paris loft was quieter these days. No film crews. No crisis meetings. No staged interviews with publicists hovering just out of frame. Just Mira. And Riva, now toddling around on padded feet, grabbing at fabric swatches and babbling to mannequins like they were confidants. Celeste had converted the loft's second bedroom into a mini design studio. Mira had said she didn't need it. Celeste had said, "That's never stopped me before." And so, Mira began sketching again. Not for revenge. Not to prove a point. Just because she could. Noy had offered her an executive role. She declined it politely. Instead, she pitched something else. A capsule collection. One drop. One purpose. For postpartum women who had been told they needed to bounce back. For survivors who didn't want to be palatable, they wanted to be seen. For the daughters who were watching, and the mothers who still hadn't forgiven themselves for staying too long in rooms where they weren't loved. They called it the Stay Collection. It sold out in 12 minutes. Riva would one day ask her mother why the world knew her name before she could even spell it. Mira would answer the same way every time. Because you reminded me who I was before they tried to make me forget. Every now and then, someone from the old world would try to re-enter. A podcast request here. A rebrand pitch there. Even Jackson, once, sent a letter. No threats. No tears. Just words. I watched her first steps online. I know I don't get to walk them with you. But I just wanted to say thank you, for not erasing me the way I erased you. She never wrote back. Because forgiveness didn't always come in letters. Sometimes, it came in silence. And sometimes, it didn't come at all. On the anniversary of the Noy runway, Mira stood in front of the mirror again, Riva in her arms, giggling, trying to pull at the earring Mira hadn't even put in yet. There were no cameras. No press. Just a woman. And her daughter. And the soft, warm pulse of peace. Mira looked at her reflection. And this time, the girl in the mirror smiled back. Legacy was never about what they called her. It was about what she chose to answer to. And from now on, she would only answer to one thing: free. Because every broken heart deserves a comeback. If this story touched you, don't forget to subscribe for more emotional romance every week. Hit like, drop a comment, and ring the bell so you never miss a moment of betrayal, redemption, and powerful love. And don't keep the drama to yourself, share this story with someone who lives for twists just like you. Thanks for listening, and remember, sometimes the best revenge is becoming unforgettable.